going live to our Facebook as well. And we have many, many people who are joining us. So we'll give it a couple minutes to make sure everyone is able to get on. But thank you for getting up, I guess, a little early for us. Nice and bright out though, over there.
I'm a very, very, very early riser. So, you know, I always kid when I talk to somebody on the East Coast at noon, I said, gee, most of the day is already done. So what the heck? No,
I know from your training and your coaching that early is definitely something you promote and making sure we make the most of the day.
You know, every time I think of your family, your grandfather took me to Shula Steakhouse probably 30 years ago. And I'll never forget, because the first thing he said is, I want to order you the big steak. And I asked how big, and I said, no, please. I'll never forget that experience. We had such a nice evening together. That was probably 30 years ago or more. So
wow, that's incredible. Fun. He was a cool guy. He always spoke so highly of you, and you remind me a lot of him.
Thank you. I take that as a huge compliment, because I thought the world of your grandpa. And of course, I've never known your father as well, but the success that you guys have, that tells the whole story.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I don't know if you met him personally. I'm double checking all my stuff, so I apologize. But Ray Barquette, who was a pillar in our industry as well, he actually passed away on Friday, and yesterday was a graveside memorial, and this would be so impactful for him. So I know he's looking down, so honored that you're joining us today.
Well, thank you. What was the cause?
He had had a stroke.
What caused Ray's passing?
Yeah, so he had a stroke and never really fully recovered after that.
Sorry to hear that. Well, you're right. He's looking down, he's smiling and having a good time.
Yes, much better time than we are now. So we have over 40 people watching on our live so far, and we're really excited. It is 11:02. Our attendees are climbing. We're up to 250, so I'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll roll right into everything. This is pretty cool. So I like that you said that everyone's coming from the Northeast. Do you think they'll be coming from your coast as well? We're seeing a little bit of that.
Are you? Well, you know, the Midwest and West has always come to the West Coast of Florida, and the Northeast seems to always migrate to the East Coast. And I think with the interesting challenges they have in the Northeast today, yours has always been a very lucrative place. Now it's really lucrative. So I see that as soon as this pandemic starts to slow down, I think the migration will start. You know, I mean, how do you beat Southern Florida as a place to live? You know, pretty tough.
You don't, Mike.
Right. I don't know if you know, we lived in Naples for 8 years. We had a home in Naples, Florida, which we loved. It just, you know, all my children are on the West Coast and all my grandkids. So we finally came back and have a place in Newport Beach where I grew up. And then of course, Las Vegas, where our headquarters are. We miss Florida.
Well, you can always come back.
Thank you.
That's wonderful though. Naples is a beautiful coast as well, and have some beautiful beaches.
Yeah.
So yes, it's almost 11:05. Sorry. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. We are so excited. I am definitely very excited, and I know many of you all are as well. Over 500 participants on our webinar, and now we're creeping up on about 100 watching live. A man that needs no introduction, which is why you're here, but I do feel it's only appropriate to introduce to you the man who has dominated the education, the coaching, the training field for our real estate industry for over 40 years. His no-nonsense, pragmatic, and direct approach has been followed by tens of thousands of agents. We're so honored to have him speak directly to our community, to the Kai's family of companies, on our industry, on changes that are occurring and how we can best handle those. So thank you, Mike. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I told you, as a third generation realtor here in Miami and a broker, it's truly really exciting to have you with us. So we'll get into it.
Thank you.
So
Good. Let's begin. And
awesome.
go ahead, please.
So many states are opening up, but as we know, this crisis might be far from over. Should we expect a substantial decline in the amount of business being done?
I think for most of the country, and I think you guys are a leader in all aspects of the opening up and getting this problem passed through. A couple of great states like yourself and Texas have been the leaders in this whole progress. But I think we saw the worst of it in the month of April. That was, I guess, if we were going to have a depressing, upsetting, discouraging month for the year, April would be the month. And May has been, of course, sunshine in comparison. I mean, the light is very bright for the month of April. But you know what's interesting is this problem, and you said it, is not going to go away tomorrow. It's not going to be a Friday, okay, everything's okay. It's going to be with us a while. And it's being cautious and being safe and being common sense. But I think what's interesting, and at least from my perspective, is the participation of agents that are in the marketplace all over the country is declining much faster than any slowdown we're having in terms of transactions. So if we take Southern Florida, the East Coast of Florida, where there's tens of thousands of agents, I would like to think that at your company, you're going to be the leader because your agents are participating in the game called real estate. Most agents are still hiding. They're under the covers. They're in the closet, afraid to come out. They're mentally down. Let's face it, it's a mental crisis as much as a physical crisis because of the fears that we all experience with this particular pandemic. So I don't see anything in terms of anything but good news for you folks. I'm concerned about the general population of realtors because they just do not know how to activate and participate. So it's going to be a challenge for most. I think it's a green light for the Kais company.
That's music to our ears, and as my father likes to say, you know, from your mouth to God's ears. But that is an interesting fact, and I do think our realtors as an industry are affected a lot by the emotions, by the economy, by their ups and downs. And so that's an interesting fact that, you know, a lot is about what our realtors can do. So, I mean, speaking to that, what should I be following? What type of schedule should I be following? If I am actively participating, what does that mean? And as I work from home or even can go into the office, what type of schedule should I be looking at?
Well, you know, the two groups of people that I have the most empathy for are the men and women that are single, live by themselves, because during this time, you know, it's been 60 days of home isolation. And you can only talk to the wall and your dog so much before you start getting a little bit crazy in the head. And then the second person is the young woman that has children and a spouse and a house, because basically these young professional real estate ladies have 4 jobs. Take care of the house, take care of the kids, take care of the spouse, and take care of their business. So it's a big challenge. But I always say this to people, you know, a real estate office is what I call a safe haven. It's a place you can say goodbye to your spouse in the morning. You're going to be with people that you like. You're going to be with the management team that supports you. You know, you got your computers, your files. Starbucks is next door. You can play the game without being in the game. So now when you're by yourself, it changes the dynamics dramatically. So specifically, and you're gonna smile when I say this, I'm going to suggest for all the families where the husband or wife is the realtor, 8:30, 9 o'clock, have a family sales meeting. And that's going to sound strange, but a family sales meeting. And you call the family together and you say, okay, here's what I need. From 9 to 10, I need 1 hour uninterrupted time to do my job so I can keep supporting this family. Then at 10 o'clock, I'll take a 20, 30-minute break, help the kids in school, help your spouse, whatever you have to do. 11 to 12, 1 hour again of intense work. Then you take an hour and a half to be with the family again, because this is part of our life today. And then 1:30 to 2:30, a third 1 hour. So how many agents total now in the Kai's company?
So in our-
Approximately.
So in our Kai's family companies, between Illustrated Properties, Platinum, and the Kai's company, we're around 3,500 realtors.
Okay, so here's a fun one. Can you imagine if 3,500 people actually work 3 hours a day? Oh, we would double the production of the company overnight. So, that's a workable schedule that an agent can follow. But see, the catch is it's a discipline issue more than anything else. Because I had a person last week send me an email and they said, I joined real estate because I've always wanted freedom. And I wrote back, freedom from income, because that's the first freedom that you get. Because if you don't have the discipline to do your job, and whether you're at home or at the office, there's buyers and sellers in the market. So here's a fun thought. I did some research a couple of days ago, and it appears there's going to be at least 4.3 to 4.5 million transactions in the US this year, real estate. And now that's down from last year, and that's okay. But if I say 4 million transactions is 8 million commission checks being distributed by great brokerage companies like yours. So how many of those commission checks would each agent like to have? And then what do they have to do in the day, the course of a day, to earn one? So it's a schedule and a discipline and cooperation with the people that you live with and your loved ones to help you do your job. There's too many agents succeeding at too high a level using what we just talked about. We know it works. And of course, as you and I say, we know it works, then can we get the agent to work? So, and if we can, we win. That's a great question. Thank you.
No, and that's very true. I think scheduling is, it's key to all of your coaching programs. That's been the number one thing I've always taken away is a schedule. And I think anybody would agree with you, but I have to say that's the first time I think I've heard schedule with my family a sales meeting.
Yeah, I thought that might bring a smile to your face. That's for sure.
I'll have to implement that with my 4-month-old and see how she takes it. But
there you go.
So as we do schedule, and I'm so glad you brought up the schedule because I do think that is one of the hardest things. But if you broke it down, you simply said 3 hours a day, and that feels a lot more manageable. So I love that if we can manage that, it makes a world of a difference.
Yes, huge difference. Good, thank you.
So a lot of questions we're hearing about is pricing, right? Do you think prices are going to drop as this crisis continues or as it gets resolved? Where do you foresee pricing going?
Okay, so I've been fortunate to be around your family and the company for, gosh, almost 40 years. And they've never heard me say what I'm going to say next. Okay, because right now we have a very interesting opportunity. We have a housing shortage in 98% of the nation. And the housing shortage is actually what is necessary to help us out of the pandemic. And the reason it's necessary is because it stabilizes the prices. See, it's basic economics, supply and demand. 2007 to 2012, when all of us were wondering if we were going to make it through the week, the housing market exploded because the number of houses for sale went through the roof, and therefore the prices dropped. So I will share this with you. I don't talk about this, but I was a poor student at best when I went to school in Southern California. I went to 12 years at Catholic school, and my middle name is David. And I thought all the D's on my report card were in recognition of my name. I didn't know that I wasn't very smart. But I took one class called economics that I got an A in, and I understood that supply and demand idea. So here's what we have to think about in terms of prices. Now, yeah, we have some high-rise condos in certain cities that are not selling as fast as we'd like. You see that in Miami Beach. You see it in New York City. You see it in Chicago. But generally speaking, the shortage is our advantage. So if I'm working with a buyer and I say, as you can see, we have limited homes to buy, you need to make a decision today. And that helps a buyer move forward faster. But then we can say to a seller, because there is limited inventory, you need to sell your home today and not wait. Because by selling it today, we're going to have an opportunity to have multiple people looking at your property. So the inventory shortage works to the advantage of both the buyer and the seller, as long as the agent understands cause and effect, because it's critically important today.
No, and that's very true. I think that goes to the educated realtor, right? At the end of the day, they need to know the market they're working in order to educate our customers.
That's right, 100%, 100%.
And so that kind of leads into our next question, which is a lot of the public's nervousness about this, right? I think understanding supply and demand is a basic economy of our real estate industry, but being able to convey that to our buyers and sellers when there is this air of uncertainty in the economy. What tips can you give a realtor to say to somebody besides giving them the information about the supply and demand? What else could I tell my leads? Hey, I'm uncertain, I'm looking to buy or sell, but I might wait.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I had a customer last week say something which I had not thought of from this perspective. He said, Mike, when in our lifetime could we walk out of our home or office, pick up a pen on the sidewalk and potentially get a disease? Well, we've never had that experience in our life because, you know, it's a devastating problem that we're all facing. We can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't feel it, we can't smell it. So the fear that people have is real. So again, I'm going to say something which a lot of your great agents I've worked with for many years. So I'm going to say something and they're going to think that Mike Ferry has lost his head. Okay. And what I'm going to say next, there are 3 words that every real estate agent has to focus on with all those leads that are waiting. And the words are empathy, understanding, and kindness. And I probably have not said those 3 times in my entire life up till now. Okay, empathy, understanding, and kindness, because people are afraid, and you know they're nervous, and they don't know what's going to happen if they list their home. Is somebody going to show up that has this virus and leave that in their home? You know, it's such a remote thing that it could happen, but the fear is there. So I'm going to say the following to your agents. Obviously, the key to success with a buyer or seller is the motivation of the buyer and seller. Pre-qualify, pre-qualify, pre-qualify. And if they're motivated, take care of them right now. But then bucket B is all the people that have that excuse. I want to do something when this ends. So this is where the empathy and understanding and kindness comes into play, because you cannot be upset about them wanting to wait because it's understandable they want to wait. However, if you communicate with those leads every 7 to 10 days, market reports, neighborhood updates, market stats, information on what's happening in real estate in Southeast Florida. See, if we communicate all the time, let's say it's 90 days before this thing really does start to work in our favor, this crazy virus. Well, we want those buyers and sellers to come back to your agents, and they'll come back to the agents that they have the best relationship with. So you can't push a person that's not motivated to do anything, but you can educate, you can share with them, you can talk to them, you can help them understand. So when the market does open up, you know, the Kai's company wins. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here.
No, I mean, I have to say those 3 words I was not expecting. I know my father would say the same.
But they are the key to understanding what's going on today with people because of the fear, you know.
No, absolutely. And I think that is key, but you hit on a really great subject, and I may go off a little bit here, I think, is the communication of, okay, you can't motivate somebody to sell who's not ready, but I can put them in my B bucket and communicate with them. You talked a little bit about sending some sort of market update. Do you all have a process or a suggestion as to what else I should be saying or how often I should be reaching out to my B bucket?
Well, I think that because, you know, especially in Southeast Florida, where the migration is very much in your favor. So we have to look at that as being a factor also. So I think in your case, on all these leads that are in that other second bucket, it's probably every 7 to 10 days, whether it be a voicemail, a conversation, an email, a text, just wanted to check in, wanted to let you know that this is what's taking place, etc. One thing we know about the average real estate agent, over communication is never something they're accused of. So we want to create a little over communication with these people at this time. It's the only way to try to negate some of the fear that people have, because good communication does negate fear, and that's what we advocate today in this situation. Every 7 to 10 days, they're going to have 5, 10, 15 names in this bucket. They have the time to communicate with them if they want to. Okay. So I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you.
No, that's great. So I'm getting a couple questions that are coming in, and I think you touched on it, but if you do have, for instance, a for sale by owner that's scared of the situation and that thinks that waiting is better, or if they want to know if it's the best time to buy and sell. We touched a little bit about the economy and about motivation. Is there anything specific you would say to maybe a FSBO different than you would say to someone who hasn't listed their property?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because see, today the for sale by owner has a huge disadvantage, because see, the for sale by owner relies on people driving through neighborhoods, seeing a sign stopping, writing down a phone number, calling. That isn't existing today because the traffic is dramatically less because of home isolation. So with the for sale by owner, it's calling and saying to that for sale by owner, first of all, I'm assuming and hoping everybody is healthy and safe, because that is something we have to always start our conversations with. But then the obvious question is, how is your traffic count? Have you had a lot of potential buyers in over the last week or so? We know the answer before we ask the question. So now we take the part of the attorney. The attorney never asks a question they don't know the answer to. And they're going to say, well, no, we don't have a lot of traffic count. And then we can talk about the traffic count inside the Kai's company in terms of how many listings are we taking, how many sales are we making, and can we show you how we're making that happen? But then the key is the protocols, which you folks have in place for safety, if you're going to list a property for sale or show a property to a buyer. And we'll talk about virtual in a minute, but see, in the meantime, the protocols are critical to the process. I have a client in Nashville, Tennessee, Bernie Gallerini, great, unbelievably productive real estate agent. He called me a couple of days ago, and you'll get a kick out of this. He had to come list me off one of his signs in the neighborhood. So he talks, he pre-qualifies, sends out the pre-listing package. He shows up, and the people are in the house with masks on. And they said, can't come in without a mask. And he said, I didn't even think I needed one. And they handed him one, he put it on, made his presentation with the mask. First time he had done it, okay? Because he'd been doing everything virtually up to that point. So, the protocols are probably what we have to express to for sale by owner, et cetera, just to comfort them a little bit, okay? I'm glad they asked that question, thank you.
No, absolutely. And when you talk about the communicating 7 to 10 days, social distancing is in effect, as we know. Who am I communicating with, right? I have my sphere and my list. Is there anyone else I should be prospecting or talking to during these days?
I hope everybody realizes how lucky they are to live in Florida, because in New York, they didn't just close down the state, they closed down everything, including what a real estate agent can do. So for Florida, obviously, number one is always the past clients. You've got to be talking to your past clients every 45 days because they are your future, okay? But second is your centers of influence, because we have to be the calming force to get the referrals that we all want. And they are your referral source for your future. But here's the fun one, you'll get a kick out of this. This little crazy cell phone has always been the enemy of real estate people. And we've heard the whining and the moaning and the complaining. I don't like to call people. I don't want to disturb them. I don't like people calling me at home. Hey, everybody's at home. When the phone rings, they all run for the phone because they want to talk to somebody besides their dog. So for the first time, the phone is our greatest advocate. But so to be specific, it's a Saturday morning, husband and wife are driving to the mall. They see a Kai's company sign. The conversation in the car is always going to be the same. I'll bet our home is nicer. I'll bet we can get more than they get for theirs. I wonder where they're moving to. Well, those conversations don't take place today because of the home isolation. Now, yes, we're getting freed out of that, but up until this point, those conversations. So now the just listed, just sold phone call becomes the most vital phone call. Here's the reports I'm getting every day for the last 60 days. Mike, if I call 20 people, 15 answer the phone. 60 days ago, I called 20, 5 answered the phone. So now this is my best friend. And as long as we're sharing positive information as to what's going on, because see, when I do a just listed, just sold, all of a sudden now I'm sharing with them information that enhances their lives because they know there is activity. But then fourth is the for sale by owner, because they're not getting the traffic. Right. So past clients, centers of influence, just listed, just sold, and the for sale by owner. If we just make 20 contacts a day, everybody on this call is going to have a better May and June. No question about it. You can't beat the numbers. They're in our favor. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you.
No, and it's true. It's a contact sport, right? As we say, and 20 calls a day definitely are turning longer. So we're becoming more virtual, as you see. I mean, you've definitely become more virtual. We have as well. What do you think this means for us as an industry?
You know what's fun is the last 2 years, and you and I would see this all the time. All we talk about is all the disruptors in real estate. You know, and it's, I mean, I don't even like to even see in the news because it always starts with more disruptors, more disruptions, more. That's baloney. It's called change. It's called our future. It's called opportunity. It's not a disruption. And of course, technology has been the big disruptor. Well, the truth is, 20% of all the transactions in the country have always been done virtually because of the second home market, the resort market, the ski market, the beach market, the desert market. So all we're doing is catching up to what has been taking place. So I don't see it being a big change. However, the challenge will be trying to get agents to understand the advantages of what you and I are doing right here. Because see, the speed, the efficiency, the time save. So it's a Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. I've got a buyer coming in. They're going to spend $650,000. They've been pre-qualified, pre-approved. I've got 6 homes to show. So I start the conversation with, I'm excited about the opportunity to help you today. I've got 6 great homes. It may take 4 to 5 hours to preview all of them, but we have an option. I could show you all 6 in about 30 minutes virtually. And then we pick the 2 that are best for you. Which would you like to do? Now we know what the answer is, okay? See, the fallacy in real estate is agents believe the public wants to spend time with them. That is not true. The public has a life to live. But then on a listing side, you know, if you're pre-qualifying, which we do on the phone, we send out the pre-listing package, which can now be emailed and you notify them to open it. You're going to call and confirm the appointments in place. You could do the entire presentation. So here's what I'd say to all your agents. They've got a condominium in Fort Lauderdale that they want to get listed for sale. The owner lives in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. They're going to do it in this medium right here. So it's going to be learning how to do it. So I want to share this thought. Agents practice scripts all the time, so they're prepared. They have to now practice virtually on things like Zoom, because see, we can't hide our blemishes when we do it this way. I mean, we're upfront, we're close, and we're personal, whether we like it or not. And I would say to you, and I mean this, you're really good on camera because you look into the camera, you smile, you nod your head. I do these, this is my 140th webinar since March 17th that I've done, okay? So I'm doing, and I only do them on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I'm doing 6 or 7 a day. And sometimes it's frightening because, you know, I had one yesterday where the guy was twitching and jumping around and got up twice and walked away from the camera. And all of a sudden I'm looking at a blank wall. So you have to learn, you know, born and raised in Southern California, you know, everybody wanted to be in the movies. This is your chance to be in the movies, because when you're doing it this way virtually, you're in the movies. So practice your presentation on things like Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, and then use things like DocuSign or whatever system you want to use to speed up the process. The buyers and sellers are going to start demanding this of us. I don't think there's any question.
Those are incredible takeaways. One of the key things I heard there is, even as we go back to normal, it's still important to utilize these tools, the virtual
Yeah.
tours and whatnot in your everyday practice, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, one of the places we love to go is Miami Beach. So, when we lived in Naples, once a month, we'd come spend the weekend. And, there's a bit of traffic in Miami Beach. I mean, it makes Los Angeles look like the fast lane, okay? Well, see, this type of technology offers the speed and the efficiency that buyers and sellers really want. Because here's what we have to remember. They have a life they're trying to live, and it's often interrupted by an agent, which is what they want done. They just don't want it done for the next 2 to 3 hours. So if we can do it faster, they're going to be a lot closer to us quicker.
No, absolutely. I'm going to actually take it a step further and take a personal question here, because my father has been getting used to the virtual world as well. And it seems like you've adopted, like you said, 140. I mean, that's incredible. He does a Facebook Live on Fridays with me that I've forced him into. And I think it's out of our comfort zones. Is that something you suggest continuing, a way to connect? And how do you coach someone through getting out of their comfort zones on camera?
Well, here's what we have to understand. Well, first of all, you'll get a kick out of this. For years, I have 5 children. My wife has 2. We have 9 grandchildren. We have, the in-laws, the outlaws, and all the kids that are married. So we've always had a family dinner. And one of the houses and it'd be 26, 28 people. We've done this for years. We did our first one on Zoom a couple of weeks ago. So all of us were with our families on Zoom. It was such a delight, except a couple of my kids didn't quite understand it. So we had to kind of work with them, help them understand that if you're in the kitchen and we're doing this in the family room, we can't hear you. Okay, so it's like anything else. It's a practiced art. Being a great presenter is a practiced art. I have friends that are in the movie business. To make a 22-minute weekly TV program, because they're 22 minutes long, they'll spend 60 hours on the set perfecting it. So now what you and I have to say to all these great agents, spend the time practicing, doing what you and I are doing right now. Even if you're in the office in 2 different parts of the office, do it with another agent just to get used to how to do it. The first one I did back on March 17th, I said to my wife, Sabrina, this is not going to work. And she goes, why? I said, sweetheart, I'm 75 years old. Okay, I got 9 chins. I got 4 million wrinkles. My hair is turning gray. For God's sakes, it was not a pretty picture. And she said, get over it. It's your job. And I did. So I continued. But I'm lucky. I've been on camera for 45 years doing seminars. So I have an understanding of it. Anybody can learn to do this if they're willing to change their behavior. And that's the catch. Okay.
I mean, you hit on great things there. And I think, like you said, one, it's a practiced art, right? And that's one thing we need to continue to remind ourselves, just like a great listing presentation is a practiced art. So practice makes perfect, and don't be shy.
No,
but
that's right. Yeah.
2, I mean, you talked about behavior and mindset. I mean, you have an incredibly strong mindset. Like you said, I mean, you've been at this for 40 years. How do you keep that mindset strong? How do you cut out this negativity, the fear? I mean, you've been through over 40 years, several downturns and recessions. How do you cut that out that so many people kind of get bogged down with?
The name Earl Nightingale, which is familiar to most people, was my mentor when I was in my early 20s. And Earl Nightingale was sitting in my home in Huntington Beach. Matthew, my son, was 6, Tom was 4. So you can see how long ago that was. And I'll never forget, I said to Earl, because he was in Los Angeles, he came to visit my family. And I said to Earl the very same question: how do you stay positive? Because we live in a somewhat negative world, especially at this time. And he gave me the best advice I've ever heard. He said, Mike, every day you have the power of choice. You can choose to be excited, enthusiastic. You can choose to smile, or you can choose to be upset. So the choice is yours. And I said, but that doesn't sound very easy. He said, well, then why don't you spend the rest of your life putting information in your head that allows you to be positive? So he's the guy that convinced me to learn how to read. And he challenged me when I was 21. And he said to me, I'm gonna set a goal for you. I want you to read 200 books a year. I said, 200 books a year? I hadn't read 2 books in 4 years of high school. Okay. So I started reading 200 books a year, but I only read books that have a positive effect on what I'm trying to do with my life. But then second is I haven't watched the news on TV in 45 years. I don't, first of all, we rarely ever turn the TV on. I like PGA golf, so I watch all the golf tournaments. There's going to be a fun one in Florida on Sunday with Tiger and Phil, which I'm excited about because I've played with both these guys several times. So it'll be fun to watch them compete. But see, I don't allow that stuff into my head. And my wife kids me that I have an invisible negativity helmet that I wear, like a football helmet. So when somebody's negative, I smile, I nod my head, and I don't listen because I'm not interested. So it's a choice. And I would say to all your agents, the power of choice is probably the greatest power we have. And if we exercise it the right way, every day will become a little bit better, okay? It's not always easy, but it's important, okay? Thank you for asking.
No, thank you. And my father says the same thing. It's like, don't watch the news. What we put in comes out, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So we are getting some great, everyone on Facebook and here in our chat, speaks so highly of you, what wonderful mentor you are, and incredible tools, just even some of these answers, but the emails that you're putting out and the great information.
Thank you.
2 questions come to mind. I know we want to wrap up, but one of them is, you've been through this before, and we talk about kind of putting that, I love that negativity kind of bubble around you, let it bounce off and go elsewhere. You've seen similar in the past or worse. Talk us through, if I'm an agent, I think it's like 80% of our agents have only been in the business 10 years. So many of them may not have even experienced our last downturn, nonetheless, any others. Talk us through what you've seen and any advice you can give us.
Well, I said a while ago that my empathy for a single man or woman living by themselves, home isolation, and then a young lady managing those 4 parts of their life. The other person I feel sorry for is those that started after 2012, because they've never been through anything before. It's been like this, straight up. So I'm going to date myself a little bit here. 1972, Huntington Beach, California, real estate agent Mike Ferry. I had 3 deals close in December. 2 FHA, and 1 was a conventional. All 3 are 30-year fixed loans. Interest rate for the buyer was 18.5% on 30-year fixed loans. Now, I just watched your beautiful reaction like this, okay? Well, in 1973, and your dad will probably recall this, and I know your grandpa does for sure, the interest rates were 21% on FHA 30-year fixed loans. Now, can you imagine? You're doing a big company-wide sales meeting tomorrow, and you say to them, well, we've had a change of rates. It just went from 3.5 to 18.5. They'd be running for the doors, okay? We really didn't think that we were going to make it through that time. It was because I was at the same time buying in ownership into a real estate company when this took place. And we were all looking at each other like, maybe we're crazy. But then, Black Monday, 1987, the greatest stock market crash in the history of the country. The trillions of dollars lost in one day. We thought the world was ending. But then the really big one, in my opinion, was 9/11. I don't think most people know this. My son Tom and my daughter Michelle were 1 block away in a high rise doing a seminar for a big real estate company in New York City. And they called me at 9:45 in the morning, which was, of course, 6:45 in California. Dad, a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center. I called the concierge in the hotel and I said, what's going on? He said, it's really bad. Well, Marcia Rand, the broker, stopped the seminar on the spot that Tom was doing for my company. I called Tom and Michelle, run downstairs, get in the limousine. And I got them out of the heart of the city within 20, 30 minutes. It was the most frightening thing I've ever experienced because, see, what I think a lot of people don't know is 1 month later, we had 2,600 agents coming to a superstar retreat at the Lowe's Hotel in Miami Beach. Except they had laid off all their employees. The general manager was the bellman at the hotel when our people checked in. But only 500 of 2,600 showed up because there was so much terror, and that was understandable. But then 2007 to 2012, weren't those exciting times? So I will say to your agents this: my son Matthew always says, this too shall pass. The greatest strength we have as a nation is our resiliency. We're going to come out of this stronger than ever. But here's the key point, and not many people agree with what I'm going to say next. The real estate industry is the center of the US economy. You know, we have 1 million plus people playing the game called real estate sales. We have any place from 4 to 6 million transactions a year. And on two sides, that's 10 to 12 million transactions, trillions of dollars. But every time you and I sell a house, 10 to 12 people are employed because of that transaction. We're the greatest employers in the nation. We have an obligation to not let this thing get in our way. I mean, we have an obligation to get to work, starting today when we hang up this call. I don't mean to be a preacher, but that's what I believe. Okay.
I think that's just an incredible note to close on. I mean, we are resilient. We're a resilient nation, and real estate always pulls out ahead and helps the economy bounce back. And like you said, we have, I mean, we are almost required to help this nation get back to work.
That's exactly right. May I do one thing?
Absolutely.
What I've discovered is when these end, which I'm always sorry to see them end, that they start having questions. So if I give my email address, if they send me any questions, I'll try to answer by the end of the day. I can't promise it any sooner than that, but I can do it by the end of the day. Okay. So my email address is very simple: mike.ferry at mikeferry.com.
Perfect. I am putting that into our chat, and we'll also get that out to our Facebook Live. And if Mike Ferry can answer your emails by the end of the day, then we should be answering emails within very quickly.
Well, first of all, you know, I think we have probably 3 or 4 of our best clients work in the Kai's company, from Illustrated all the way down to the Point. So I was so glad when this was able to come about. And then when I saw that you were going to be our hostess, I was excited because, you know, the world is moving from generation to generation. You know, my son Matt, my son Tom, my son Pat are now out in the field doing a great job. I'm excited for the future of our business. And right now I'm looking at the future of our business. So it's an honor for me to be with you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. This was a huge honor for me, a great privilege, a beacon in our industry and our, not just in our industry, but in our economy and in the world. And so I'm really honored to have you. We appreciate your time. We know it's valuable. So thank you so very much. Thank you guys to those who came on today. Like Mike said, if you have questions and he was unable to answer, shoot him an email and get an answer, but follow suit, mindset, behavior, and have those morning sales meetings so we can get back to work.
Thank you soon. See you soon. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.